Grace and peace for July 28th. This is Apocalypse Week. So, my brother Alan sent me a sermon on the apocalypse. It was entitled Coronageddon. It's actually a really good sermon. So, the preacher shared some perspectives with me, which I always appreciate, right, in my bias. So, the word apocalypse, first of all, for all of us, comes from the Greek, so apokalypsis. So, apa meaning for and then kalypsis meaning cover. So apocalypsis, these endings, the apocalypse, we're uncovering something. We've got a lot to uncover. Also, the apocalypse, her theory, and what I would share, is that we're in an apocalypse now. We've entered one. It's not the first, it won't be the last. There are endings and beginnings in our lifetimes, and we all know this, because there are things that must be uncovered, and when we discover or uncover, then we move on. So, we have a lot of things we've covered up for a very long time, and because we've covered them up, people have lost hope. They've lost faith. Lost hope and faith in systems that were meant to give them hope and faith. It's a lot like the early Christian church, who had systems that they had lost faith in. That's why these apocalyptic books, that far from being things that have no relevance, have an awful lot of relevance in our life today. The early church believed Jesus and believed these things that were being said. Things like, I will not leave you orphaned. The early church believed that the death and resurrection of Jesus really meant that they were being called to live into this new kingdom that came with his resurrection, and that new kingdom was living into a healing and a grace and a truth. So living into this new kingdom is living into the love that Jesus came to proclaim. And any of those lessons that Jesus taught us, the way that his followers were living, they were living the uncovering of this new way into being. So when Jesus turned the tables in the temple, he was uncovering an old system so a new system could begin. And he did that in love. So the disciples were living this new way of being in love into this new kingdom that had come. That love changed everything. That love that came into being, it was the Jesus movement, and it changed everything. It was an apocalypse. That's why we are saying apocalypses happen. So, this Jesus movement that we continue to be a part of, God sending God's love into the world, God's Spirit into the world, not leaving us orphaned in this world. God is still with us in this world. And we are called, just as those original disciples were called, to live that love into this world. So when I awake each day into this world where God's living and loving Spirit is still alive in this world, I ask myself questions like, Jesus' followers, when they awoke in their apocalypse, they wanted to know how to best live in that world. And what did they do? They took care of the poor. What did they do? They fed the hungry. What did they do? Well, the book of Acts says They distributed the proceeds and the goodwill to those who were in need. And little by little, the goodwill and the kingdom spread, and so those were saved, their numbers were added to. So that's how that Jesus thing, that's how it got started. That Jesus apocalypse, if you will. The power of love, that's what got him through, and that's the only thing that will get us through, even if we're in Corona-geddon. So you and I, we're responsible for today. We'll never wake up and find that it was the good old days. We'll only ever wake up and find that it's today. And we can live into love. And we can be a part of the Jesus apocalypse, doing everything we can do to spread the love of God today. Amen.